Welcome the timeless, forgotten mystery. For thousands of years, the great pyramids of Egypt have stood tall over the desert sands. The mysteries of the ancient civilization that once thrived here remained unsolved, until July 19, 1799. Dramatic music. A French soldier stumbled upon a large stone about 35 miles east of Alexandria during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian expedition. This discovery revealed a written language long forgotten, the Rosetta Stone, and it became the key to unlocking the secrets of an entire civilization. Egypt is the gift of the Nile, wrote Herodotus, the father of history. The Nile gave life to the land, providing water for crops and supporting the rise of civilization along its valley. The river divided Egypt into two lands, offering fertile soil through annual floods that spread rich mud across its banks. When the waters receded, the agricultural year began, and Egypt grew into one of the world's first farming societies. By the end of the Paleolithic era, Egyptians crafted arrows, harpoons, pottery, and tools from bone. Carbon dating shows that as early as 4600 BC, corn was harvested in silos near Thiam. People built reed and mud huts and sowed crops in the Nile's marshy soil. Egypt was divided into Upper and Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt lay to the north, with the Nile fanning into its delta, while Upper Egypt stretched south to Aswan. Around 3000 BC, King Nama united the two kingdoms. Each retained its symbols, the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt. Pharaohs wore both together, symbolizing their rule over the two lands. Vocalist gently singing. The pre-dynastic period, spanning from 6000 to 3150 BCE, came before recorded history. Though no writing exists, artifacts reveal the rich cultural life of early Egyptians. Cultures such as the Halfan, Kadan, Sibyllian, and Harifan began as hunter-gatherers and gradually became farmers, forming permanent settlements. The Fayum oasis nurtured communities from 900 to 6000 BCE, where people built reed houses, stored food underground, raised livestock, and crafted pottery. Over time, chieftains passed power to their heirs, and tribes merged into larger, more organized societies. The Fayum, a culture gave rise to Merneptah between 5000 and 4000 BCE, centered on farming along the Nile Delta. Egyptians grew wheat, barley, flax, and peas while raising animals. The Elamari culture around 4000 BCE advanced with circular plastered mud houses, while the Badarian culture preferred more permanent homes. By the Naqada periods, beginning around 3500 BCE, mummification practices emerged, homes became larger and more complex, and trading expanded. Naqada too built sun-dried brick houses with courtyards, and Abydos grew into a necropolis, housing massive tombs for rulers and common people alike. By 3400 BCE, hieroglyphs began to appear on pottery, seals, and ivory. Full sentences only emerged centuries later, but this marked the dawn of Egyptian writing. The Naqada III period led into the early dynastic era. Upper Egypt city-states, Thinis, Naqada, and Nekhen, fought for dominance. Rulers such as Scorpion kings and Ka laid the foundation for King Nama, who unified the two lands around 3150 BCE, beginning Egypt's recorded history. Dramatic upbeat music. The early dynastic period saw Egypt united under Menes, believed to be Nama, who ruled from Upper Egypt. He married Princess Neithotep of Naqada to strengthen alliances and expanded Egypt's borders through war and trade. His son Horahar continued this growth, building mastaba tombs and emphasizing religious practices. Later rulers such as Djur, Djet, and Queen Merneptah shaped Egypt's early monarchy. Den, who ruled for 50 years, is remembered as the first pharaoh to wear the crowns of both Upper and Lower Egypt, symbolizing true unification. The first dynasty ended with internal struggles, but the second dynasty brought figures like Hotep Sekemwi, who sought peace, and Peribsen, who aligned with the god Seth, marking a unique shift in religious symbolism. Ka-Sekemwi reunited the lands and became the father of Pharaoh Djoser, ushering in the third dynasty. Dramatic music. King Djoser is remembered for his step pyramid at Saqqara, designed by his brilliant vizier Imhotep. Imhotep, later deified as the god of medicine, transformed a simple mastaba into a six-tiered stone pyramid, the world's first monumental stone structure. Though looted in antiquity, its design became the foundation for later pyramids. The Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids, flourished with rulers like Snefru, who built 3 pyramids including the successful Red Pyramid. His son Khufu commissioned the Great Pyramid of Giza, the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing today. Though stories portray him as a harsh ruler, Khufu expanded Egypt's wealth, built monumental projects, and oversaw the world's first known dam. His vizier Hemiunu supervised the Great Pyramid's construction, a feat of engineering that remains mysterious to this day. Khafra, Khufu's successor, built the second largest pyramid and is often associated with the Great Sphinx. Menkaure followed with a smaller pyramid, reflecting Egypt's waning resources. Over time, priests gained more power, and resources drained, contributing to the Old Kingdom's decline. Life in ancient Egypt was rich and layered. Peasants worked the land owned by nobles and temples, but during Nile floods, they built monuments like the pyramids. Far from being slaves, they were paid in food, beer, and sometimes money. Skilled artisans, carpenters, and painters could rise in status, while brewers, often women, were highly valued, as beer was both nourishment and ritual. Marriages were arranged, often young, and royal unions cemented treaties. Yet Egyptians also enjoyed life, playing sports, hunting, and relaxing with board games. Their civilization, born from the Nile, expressed itself through monumental architecture, complex beliefs, and daily life that combined hard work with joy. The pyramids remain as silent witnesses to a people who shaped history with vision, innovation, and faith. According to the 3rd century BCE historian Merneptah, an act occurred that would have been unthinkable in earlier times. Pharaoh Teti was replaced by Userkare, who may have been part of the assassination plot. His reign was brief, and he was succeeded by Moriah Pepi I, during whose rule the nomarchs, the provincial governors, gained increasing authority. By the end of the Old Kingdom, political power had fragmented, and the once strong central system had become decentralized. Restoring that power would take generations, lasting well into the 12th dynasty. As central authority crumbled, nomarchs tightened their control over their regions. This pattern persisted under Merneptah I and Neferkare Pepi II. Pepi II took the throne as a child and died an old man, ruling for nearly a century, one of the longest reigns in history. But during his time, the Old Kingdom steadily declined. Provincial officials and the clergy grew in influence, eroding the authority of both king and government. Pepi II was followed briefly by Merneptah II. The dynasty ended with Neferkare, often identified with Queen Nitocris, described by Herodotus as the ruler who avenged her brother's murder by drowning his killers at a banquet. By then, Pepi II had outlived his heirs and had become ineffective as famine and drought struck the land. With no strong central government to respond, Egypt slid into crisis. The 6th dynasty collapsed, leaving local rulers focused only on their own regions. No single leader had the power, or the will, to guide the nation. With the fall of the dynasty, Egypt descended into the First Intermediate Period. The First Intermediate Period was marked not by chaos alone, but by a new political model. Provincial administrators grew powerful while the central government at Memphis weakened. Monumental projects like the Pyramids of Giza were no longer possible. There was no ruler strong enough to command them, and no administration to organize such massive workforces. Though often portrayed as a dark age, it was more a time of change. Each region governed itself. The kings of the 7th and 8th dynasties were weak, their names and reigns forgotten in later records. Memphis, the old royal capital, was abandoned. New rulers established their power at Heracleopolis, founding the 9th and 10th dynasties and declaring themselves the rightful kings of Egypt. Meanwhile, in Thebes, around 2125 BCE, a nomarch named Intef rose to power. Bearing the titles Great Overlord of the Gnomes and Overseer of Priests, Intef challenged Heracleopolitan authority. He founded the 11th dynasty, remembered as Intef the Mighty, and helped set the stage for Egypt's reunification. A monument in his honor still stands at Karnak. Although it was Mentuhotep II who ultimately reunified Egypt and ushered in the Middle Kingdom, it was Intef I and his successors who paved the way. Around 2115 BCE, Mentuhotep I expanded Thebes' influence, conquering neighboring nomes and raising the city's prestige. His successors continued his work until Mentuhotep II finally defeated the Heracleopolitan kings, rewarding allies of Thebes and punishing its enemies. Once united, he turned to governance, military campaigns, and ambitious building projects. Mentuhotep III followed, ruling from 2010 to 1998 BCE. He expanded Egypt's borders, launched an expedition to Punt, and fortified the northern delta. His successor, Mentuhotep IV, ruled for only 7 years and left little record, though the nation prospered under his leadership. His vizier, Amenemhat, later claimed divine signs marked him as chosen to rule, a gazelle giving birth on sacred stone, and unexpected rain filling a well large enough to water a whole gathering. When Amenemhat became Pharaoh Amenemhat I, he founded the 12th dynasty, moving the royal seat to Itchatora near Memphis. His successor, Senusret I, carried on his father's vision, expanding infrastructure, overseeing grand building projects, and commissioning a temple to Amun at Karnak, the foundation of what would become one of Egypt's greatest temple complexes. Both rulers worked to weaken the power of local nomarchs, ensuring loyalty to the crown. The 12th dynasty's administration proved far stronger than that of the Old Kingdom. Wealth remained centralized with the king, while still allowing regions to prosper. Irrigation systems advanced, canals were dug, and nilometers were built to measure Nile floods and set tax levels. Senusret II turned the Fayum into an agricultural hub through an ingenious system of dikes and canals. His successor, Senusret III, reigned from 1878 to 1860 BCE and became one of Egypt's most powerful kings. Celebrated as a warrior king, he expanded into Nubia, built fortresses to secure trade, and even campaigned into Palestine. His military successes brought him such reverence that he was deified during his lifetime. Amenemhat III continued his father's legacy, constructing monuments and engineering vast irrigation projects, including the El Lahoun Dam, which controlled floods and provided water for farming. He also built the great mortuary complex at Hawara, known to the Greeks as the Labyrinth. Agriculture flourished during this time. Farmers grew emmer wheat for bread and beer, grapes for wine, dates, figs, papyrus, and more. They used clever tools like the shaduf, a counterweighted pole and bucket system for lifting water from canals. Tomb paintings from this era vividly show plowing, harvesting, and transporting crops. Even monumental construction relied on ingenuity. In the tomb of Jehuti-Nakht, a nomarch of the 12th dynasty, a scene depicts 172 men hauling a colossal statue on a sled, while others poured water ahead to reduce friction, a simple but brilliant method of moving stone. The dynasty ended with Soberneferu, Egypt's first confirmed female ruler since the early dynastic period. Her reign was short, and with her death, the 12th dynasty ended. The 13th dynasty inherited its wealth and policies but lacked strong rulers. Egypt remained unified, but power weakened. This marked the beginning of the Second Intermediate Period. The rulers of the 13th dynasty moved the capital from Itchatora to Thebes, weakening control in the north. Meanwhile, a small settlement called Hutwaret, founded earlier in the 12th dynasty, had grown into a thriving trade hub. Known later as Avris, it became the seat of a rising power, the Hyksos. Originally immigrants and traders from the Levant, the Hyksos, called Hekorkasut by the Egyptians, meaning rulers of foreign lands, gained wealth and influence through commerce. Over time, they established political control, building alliances with local nomarchs. By the later 13th and 16th dynasties, Hyksos rulers had taken power in Lower Egypt, while Kush rose as a rival power in the south. Egypt had entered a new age, one of division, foreign rule, and transformation. The Hyksos adopted Egyptian customs, attire, and even incorporated Egyptian gods into their own rituals. Their kings established Egypt's 15th dynasty, but once they were expelled, the bands destroyed nearly every trace of their presence. Only a handful of Hyksos rulers are known today through inscriptions and ruins at Avris, the most famous being Apepi, also called Apophis, whose name echoed the great serpent Apep, nemesis of the sun god Ra. While the Hyksos rose to power in the north, Nubians grew stronger in the south. The weakened 13th dynasty neglected Egypt's southern frontier, leaving Thebes squeezed between two foreign powers. Manetho records that Apepi once sent a curious demand to the band king Seqenenre Dao around 1580 BCE. Do away with the hippopotamus pool east of your city, for it keeps me from sleeping night and day. This request likely mocked the band practice of hippo hunting, which would have insulted the Hyksos, who revered Seth, often associated with the hippopotamus. Dao rejected the demand, seeing it as a challenge to his independence, and marched against Avris. His mummy reveals violent wounds, suggesting he was killed in battle, and his defeat showed Thebes had been crushed in that clash. Dao's son Kamose inherited the struggle. In inscriptions, he bitterly complains about paying taxes to the Asiatics and being trapped between northern and southern enemies. Kamose launched a fierce assault on Avris, boasting that his attack was so swift and terrifying it left Hyksos women barren. He claimed to have leveled the city, though evidence shows this was exaggerated. The Hyksos still held Lower Egypt 3 years later, and Avris remained their stronghold. Kamose was succeeded by his brother Ahmose, who continued the fight. Inscriptions in the tomb of Ahmose son of Abana, a soldier who served under him, described the devastation of Avarice and the Hyksos' retreat to Sharuan in Palestine. Ahmose besieged the city for 6 years before driving them into Syria, where they vanish from history. Ahmose I founded the 18th dynasty and began Egypt's new kingdom, the era of empire. From the Hyksos, the Egyptians had learned the value of a professional standing army. Determined never again to be ruled by foreigners, Ahmose and his successors built a military machine that would dominate the region for centuries. Ahmose fortified Egypt's frontiers, securing strategic settlements and pushing campaigns into both Nubia and the Levant. By the time of his death, he had consolidated power and left Egypt prosperous and stable for his heir, Amenhotep I. Amenhotep I followed his father's policies, portraying himself as a warrior king, though his campaigns were limited mostly to Nubia. Still, he maintained Egypt's borders and stability. His successor, Thutmose I, was far more aggressive. He crushed a Nubian revolt personally, killing their king and displaying the body from the prow of his ship as a grim warning. He expanded Egypt deeper into Nubia, then turned northward to Palestine and Syria, extending Egypt's influence across the Near East. Thutmose I also expanded the Great Temple of Karnak and built extensively across the land. Thutmose II, his son, ruled briefly and was overshadowed by his half-sister and wife, Hatshepsut. Upon his death, Hatshepsut became regent for the young Thutmose III, but soon declared herself co-ruler. One of the most powerful rulers of the new kingdom, Hatshepsut presided over peace and prosperity. She launched the most successful expedition to Punt, expanded Karnak, governed harmoniously with Nubia, and built some of Egypt's most remarkable monuments, including her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. Later pharaohs even usurp her works by erasing her name. Hatshepsut also commissioned vast obelisks, sacred to the sun god. Many remain standing today, while others inspired imitations across the world. One unfinished obelisk still lies in the granite quarries of Aswan, showing how these colossal monuments were carved. After Hatshepsut's death, Thutmose III assumed full control. Inheriting a strong and wealthy kingdom, he transformed Egypt into a true empire. Using chariots and bronze weapons learned from the Hyksos, he led at least 17 campaigns over 2 decades, extending Egypt's dominion from Libya to Syria and deep into Nubia. When the king of Kadesh rebelled, forming a coalition at Megiddo, Thutmose III marched north. Instead of taking the obvious routes, he boldly chose a narrow pass, surprising his enemies and driving them from the battlefield. He then besieged Megiddo until it fell. His scribe, Chounani, recorded the campaign, and Thutmose had it carved onto the walls of Karnak's great temple. The victory at Megiddo secured Egypt's supremacy in the Levant. Thutmose III was succeeded by his son Amenhotep II, who inherited a powerful and secure realm. Unlike his father, he preferred diplomacy and construction, signing peace treaties and trade agreements, including one with Mitanni. His son, Thutmose IV, carried on his policies. Known from the famous dream Stele at the Sphinx, Thutmose IV is sometimes regarded as a usurper, but he is remembered for restoring monuments, including Giza's Great Pyramid. Next came Amenhotep III, one of Egypt's most prosperous and influential rulers. His reign marked a golden age of wealth, diplomacy, and monumental building. Many of Egypt's finest temples and statues date from his rule. Yet during his reign, the priests of Amun grew dangerously powerful, owning more land than the pharaoh himself. To counter their influence, Amenhotep III promoted the cult of Aten, the sun disk, though his effort failed. His son, Amenhotep IV, took this further. Renaming himself Akhenaten, he attempted a religious revolution, closing temples, banning the gods, and elevating Aten as the sole deity. He moved the capital to Amarna and built shrines to Aten, supported by his queen, Nefertiti. This Amarna period was Egypt's bold experiment with monotheism. But after Akhenaten's death, his young son Tutankhaten, better known as Tutankhamun, restored the old religion